all you ghouls and spirits and undead and everybody in between. Welcome to my channel. I am Ghostly Taps ASMR. I do a variety of ASMR. Today we're going to do my favorite with 3 of the top scariest short ghost stories of all time. But we're not going to do it in whispers or weird voices. We are just going to talk in a soothing voice, and I'm going to read you a ghost story. Kind of like your mom's reading you a story, or your best friend, or your dad, or whoever you want to picture who read you stories is going to read you a story. And while I read, I'm going to be doing a few triggers for you to relax, and it also helps give my hand something to do while I talk, because I'm Italian, and that's what we do. So let's dive right in. The first story we are going to read is the Centerville Ghost, and I'm going to start off reading this story with my brush. Mr. Hiram Otis was moving his family to Centerville Chase in England. It was a grand old house, and everyone said it was haunted, but Mr. Otis did not agree. There were no such things as ghosts, told Lord Centerville. Miss Umney, the housekeeper, was standing on the steps when they arrived. She led them to the library to have tea. Mr. Otis noticed a dull red stain on the floor. "I'm afraid something has spilled here," she said to Miss Umney. "Yes," replied the old housekeeper, "it's blood." "Well, I do not care for blood in the library," said Mrs. Otis. "Please remove it at once." The old woman smiled. "That blood is of Lady Eleanor. The bloodstain cannot be removed, and her husband, Sir Simon, still haunts the house." "That's nonsense," cried Washington. "The oldest Otis son, Pinkerton's champion stain remover, will clean it up in no time." He scrubbed the spot. The stain was gone. Just then a flash of light lit up the room, and Mrs. Umney fainted. Mr. Otis came to the room and found Mrs. Umney. She was on the floor. He splatted the cold water on her face. "Mr. Otis," Miss Umney said, "beware of the ghost. It haunts this house." "Thankfully, we are not afraid of ghosts," said Mrs. Otis. The next morning, Mrs. Otis and Washington found the bloodstains in the library again. "Don't think the champion stain remover is the one to blame," said Washington. "It must have been the ghost." Each morning they found a fresh stain on the floor. Mr. Otis was beginning to think the ghost existed after all. One night, Mrs. Otis was awakened by the curious noise outside his room. It sounded like a clank of metal. Right in front of him was a ghostly old man. "Dear sir," said Mr. Otis, holding up the bottle, "kindly oil chains with the rising sun lubricator, and I must get some sleep." The Centerville Ghost threw down the bottle and disappeared through the wall. He went to his secret chamber. He was greatly insulted. He thought of all the people he had frightened in the last 3 centuries. "They never treated me like this," he said. All night he thought about his revenge. The next night the ghost appeared again. The family had just gone to bed. Suddenly they heard a fearful crash in the halls. It was Miss Otis. She rushed down the stairs. There she found a large suit of armor scattered on the floor. The Centerville Ghost sat on the stairs holding his head in his hands. "Stop holding your hands," shouted the twin boys. They had brought their slingshots with them. Each of them fired a shot at the poor ghost. Just then Mrs. Otis leaned over and offered some medication to the ghost. "You are far from well," she said. "I brought you a bottle of Mr. Dobell's soothing remedy." The ghost glared at Mrs. Otis with a groan. He vanished in the air. The ghost retreated to his room. He was very upset. "How could they treat me this way?" wondered the ghost. "It's humiliating." The ghost felt very ill after this. He hardly left his room, except to put bloodstains on the floor in the library. When he recovered, the ghostly resolved to try again. He planned and go quietly into Washington's room. Then he would mumble and mock him at the foot of his bed. Then he would go see the twin boys. He planned to sit on them until they screamed. What a marvelous plan, he thought. That night the ghost sat down the hallway. He waited for the clock to strike 12. The raven croaked from the old tree outside. The wind rattled the shutters on their hinges. What a perfect night for a scare, thought the ghost. The ghost chuckled to him and turned the corner. Suddenly he wailed and fell back in terror. Right in front of him stood a horrible ghost. Its head was round, fat, and orange. Its eyes were empty and black. It laughed at him with an awful grin. The Centerville Ghost had never seen another ghost before. Naturally, he was very frightened. After a second glance at a strange phantom, the Centerville Ghost covered his eyes and ran back to his room, to his bedroom. The ghost hid to his face in his blankets. The ghost tiptoed down the hallway. He reached the spot and gasped. Something had happened to the ghost. It no longer looked frightened. The Centerville Ghost could see that the ghost's head was only a pumpkin. He read a sign that said, "Ye Oats Ghost." The Centerville Ghost had been tricked. A few days later, Virginia Otis went riding and tore her skirt. She knew her mother would not be happy. Virginia went to the sewing room, hoping to fix her skirt before her mother saw it. When she opened the door, she was surprised to see the Centerville Ghost. He was sitting by the window, watched the leaves fly by. He looked very sad. Virginia felt sorry for the ghost. "My brothers are leaving tomorrow for school," she said. "If you behave yourself, no one will bother you." The ghost turned around. "It's my job to misbehave," he said. "Nonsense," said Virginia. She turned and left. "Please don't go, Miss Virginia," cried the ghost. "I am so lonely. I don't know what to do. I want to go to sleep, but I can't." "That's absurd," said Virginia. "I have not slept in 300 years, he said sadly. "I am tired. I wish I would fall asleep and never awake," said the ghost. He continued to explain why he haunted the old house. The ghost needed Virginia's pure heart. If she would be his true friend, the ghost could sleep forever. About 10 minutes later, the bell rang for tea. Mrs. Otis was greatly alarmed when Virginia did not appear. Mr. Otis rode his horse across the countryside to search for her. He could not find her. Then at midnight, a panel at the top of the stairs flew open. Virginia came out looking pale and tired. She was holding a small white box. "My child," cried Mr. Otis, "where have you been?" "Papa," said Virginia quietly, "I have been with the ghost. He's dead now." Virginia led them down a secret corridor. Finally, they came back to the great oak door. Virginia opened it. They found themselves in a small room. A huge iron ring was attached to the wall. A chain led to the ring to a skeleton. Virginia explained that Sir Simon was locked in this room a long time ago. He can rest now, she said. 4 days later, the Otis family had a proper funeral for poor Mr. Simon. After the funeral, Virginia remembered the white box the ghost had given her. She brought it to her father. Slowly, Mr. Otis opened the box. Virginia gasped, looked at those beautiful jewels. She cried. Virginia's father handed them to her. You must take them, he said. We certainly want Mr. Simon to rest in peace. Next one we're going to read is The Legend of Sleepy Hollow. And I'm going to use my Wonder Wand while we read this one. There once was a valley that was said to be the quietest place in the world. It was just off the eastern shore of the Hudson River. For as long as anyone could remember, it had been called Sleepy Hollow. The folks who lived in Sleepy Hollow were a very strange lot. They heard voices and saw strange things. It was known that Sleepy Hollow was haunted. The spirit of most often haunted the Enchanted Valley was a man riding on his horse, but the man did not have a head. People loved to talk about a ghost. He was a soldier, someone would say. They buried him in the churchyard. Someone else would quickly say. The people of Sleepy Hollow called the spirit of the headless horseman. One of those people was Ichabod Crane, a tall, sweet-tempered teacher. He taught a plain schoolhouse that stood in a lonely spot at the foot of the green hill. Ichabod's students could not help think that their teacher's arms and legs were just a bit too long for his body. He looked like a scarecrow, they would whisper as they watched Ichabod walk to school on windy days. His clothes fluttered around him. Ichabod loved scary things, so Sleepy Hollow was a perfect place for him. One of his favorite things to do was stretch out next to the river and read spooky stories. The only thing that Ichabod loved more than a scary story was a young lady named Katrina Van Tassel. Katrina was one of Ichabod's music students, and she was known throughout Sleepy Hollow for her beauty. The old man who Ichabod worried might hurt his chances with Katrina was Brom Bones. With a burly frame and broad shoulders, Brom was threatened to be a gangly Ichabod. He was known throughout Sleepy Hollow for his strength and his great skill in horsemanship. Wherever they fight for a party, the men could chuckle. Brom isn't far behind. Although Katrina showed interest in Brom, Ichabod would not give up. I shall not lose, Ichabod thought. He went about courting the lovely Katrina, visiting her home and taking her on long moonlit walks. Brom became jealous now that Ichabod also seeing Katrina. Brom found ways to make it difficult for the young teacher. He began playing practical jokes. One night he went to the old schoolhouse and turned everything topsy-turvy. Brom always tried to make Ichabod look silly in front of Katrina. Brom became jealous when he found out that Ichabod was also seeing Katrina. Brom found ways to make things very difficult for the young teacher. He began playing practical jokes. One night he went to the old schoolhouse and turned everything topsy-turvy. Brom always tried to make Ichabod look silly in front of Katrina. One autumn afternoon, a messenger arrived at Ichabod's schoolhouse and gave him an invitation. "What's this invitation for?" he asked the students curiously. "Why, it's for a party tonight at Van Tassel's," replied Ichabod. He knew this was a chance to sweep Katrina off her feet. "She will forget she ever met Brom Bones," he explained. The classroom was abuzz with excitement. Ichabod agreed to dismiss his students for a full hour early. He needed time to primp. After the students burst out of the schoolhouse doors, Ichabod began grooming himself for the big event. He combed his hair, studied his reflection in the mirror, and hung in the schoolhouse. Finally, Ichabod stepped back to look at himself. Perfect, he declared. Ichabod proudly mounted his horse like a knight in search of an adventure, but he was far from being a brave knight. The horse he rode to Van Tassel's was not even his own. It was an old plow horse. A tangled mane. It was a strange sight to see Ichabod riding a horse. His elbows stuck out like grasshoppers' legs, his arms flapped about the wings as he rode, his black coat fluttered around in the wind. Ichabod was confident when he walked to the party, but his shoulders dropped a bit when he saw the rival Broom's bones. He was in a corner with some people. Broom had arrived on his favorite horse, a Daredevil's mischievous owner. No one had ever been able to tame him. Ichabod could hear Broom's booming voice. And then I lifted all 5 men with one hand. Broom begged Ichabod's side. Would Katrina really choose him over Broom? Suddenly the music floated through the manor of the house, and the guests began to trickle into the ballroom. May I have the honor of this dance? Ichabod asked Katrina quickly. Soon they were whirling across the floor. Katrina smiled happily, but Broom was anything but happy. He stood in the corner, jealously watching Ichabod. Before Ichabod left the party, he joined a few people that were telling tales in the haunted land. Soon they were talking about the Headless Horseman. It had seemed that it had been spotted several times lately. At one time, his favorite place, the bridge leads to church, someone said. It was almost midnight when Ichabod left. There was hardly a sound except for the chirp of the crickets. Even Ichabod loved all things spooky. He began to feel nervous. His heart was beating so loudly. He remembered all the ghost stories that he had heard at the party. I must be brave, said Ichabod, his voice trembling. Ichabod had never felt so lonely. He began to whistle. To keep his spirits up, he thought he heard someone else whistling. But it was just the wind sweeping through the dry autumn branches. Suddenly Ichabod jumped into the saddle. Straight ahead was something hanging in the middle of a tree. A gasp, yelled Ichabod, but a nervous school teacher saw that it was not a ghost. It was a tree in the right where it had been struck by lightning. Ichabod almost at the very spot where the Headless Horseman had been seen. Soon as he began to hear thumping noise, Ichabod turned his head towards that noise. He saw a huge figure standing in the shadows. Why, who are you? Shouted Ichabod. Ichabod turned his head to get a better look at the unwelcoming guest. The figure was a large man riding a black horse. Ichabod's teeth began to chatter. Then he saw it was the Headless Horseman. Ichabod gasped. Faster and faster, Ichabod told his horse. When Ichabod looked behind him, he screamed in horror as the Headless Horseman was about to throw his head. Ichabod dodged the Headless Horseman, rode off into the night. The next morning, a search party found Ichabod's horse a little ways from his house. Next morning, a search party found Ichabod's horse a little ways from his horse. They found his hat and a shattered pumpkin. Ichabod never came back to Sleepy Hollow. When the townspeople told the story, Broom Bones always had a smile on his face. Was just Broom's throwing a pumpkin, or did Ichabod really see the Headless Horseman? No one knows for sure, as it may become one of many mysteries of Sleepy Hollow. And our third story we're going to read is The White Dog. Once there was a boy who had a friendly white dog named Ghost. Joey and Ghost were best friends. They loved to roam the countryside looking for an adventure. They climbed rocks and waded through cool streams. Joey's neighbors all liked Ghost too. One day Farmer Green saw the two friends walk by his farm. "There goes that boy and his white dog again," he said. "They're lucky to have each other." That day Joey and Ghost were hunting squirrels. They never caught any, but the chase was the fun part. Ghost would sniff them out. Then the two friends would run after a squirrel until it hid in a tree. Suddenly Ghost spotted a squirrel. Then Joey saw a squirrel. Ghost ran back to the rock. When Joey got to the other side of the rock, he stopped. Ghost barked at Joey. "What's wrong, boy?" he asked. He kept barking until Joey went back up behind the rock. Then the ghost moved. Now Joey could see his friends was barking. A large black snake was coiled up next to the rock. Ghost had to protect Joey. "What a good boy," Joey said. "Let's go home." That night Joey said goodnight to Ghost, and then he left the treat for him on the doorstep. "See you in the morning, boy," he said. The next morning Joey jumped out of bed and ran downstairs. Outside he whistled for Ghost. "Ghost, come here, boy," he called. But Ghost did not come. Joey wondered where his friend could be. He ran to his barn to get his father. "Have you seen Ghost?" asked Joey. Joey climbed down from the tractor. "Son, I found Ghost this morning," his father stated. "He wasn't moving, so I took him to Dr. Parker's house. I'm afraid there's nothing we could do. Ghost was very old." Joey was heartbroken. He would miss his friend so much. He wondered if he would ever explore the woods with him. After Ghost was gone, Joey spent all of his time alone in the woods. He walked along the creeks where he had played with Ghost. One day, Joey ventured farther than he had ever gone before, and he walked along the edge of the river. Suddenly, he lost his footing. A rock gave way, and Joey landed on the ledge below. Joey's leg was twisted and scraped. He could not climb out of the ravine. Joey yelled for help, but no one was close enough to hear him. A few miles down the road, Farmer Green was working in his field. It was a very hot day. He wiped sweat from his brow. Just then he noticed a white dog running towards him. It looked like Joey's dog. The dog barked and barked at Farmer Green. "Hey, Ghost, how are you doing?" he said. "Haven't seen you in a while." The dog continued to bark at him. Farmer Green tried to drive his tractor through the rows of beans, but the dog ran in front of the tractor's wheels. The Farmer Green blew the tractor's horn, but the dog would not budge. Finally, Farmer Green turned off the engine and climbed down from his tractor. "Where is your friend?" he asked. "Now go find him." The dog was persistent. He continued to bark at Farmer Green. Then he ran up to Farmer Green. He grabbed the man's trousers in his mouth and tried to pull him along. "Whoa, okay," said Farmer Green. "I'm coming, let's go." He followed the dog through the woods. They wandered for miles through the thick brush and the tall trees. Every few feet the dog would go back for Farmer Green. He wanted to make sure that the man was following him. They came closer to the ravine. The dog disappeared in the brush. "Now, where did you go?" called the farmer. Then he heard the boy's cry. Joey was trying to yell for him. He had almost given up. Back at him. "Hello," yelled Farmer Green. "Are you hurt?" Joey looked up from the ledge. He could see Farmer Green standing at the edge of the ravine. The man was peering down at Joey. He could barely see the boy through the trees. "I'm okay, but my leg is hurt," Joey yelled. "I can't make it up there all by myself." "Hang on," said the farmer. "I'll help you up." Farmer Green found a strong vine and helped one end of the vine, and he threw the other end to Joey. "Use this to pull yourself up," he said. Joey grabbed onto the vine. It was very strong, thick rope. Using his good leg, Joey pulled himself up to the side of the ravine near the top. Farmer Green reached over and pulled Joey onto the rocks. "Thank you," said Joey. He tried to catch his breath. Farmer Green helped Joey sit up on the rocks. "Let's have a look at that leg," he said. Joey's leg was still bleeding. "It hurt," Joey said, "but I think I can walk." "Let's find a branch you can have to clutch," Farmer Green said. Farmer Green pulled the bark off the end of the branch, then helped Joey off his feet. Joey stood shaking. "Thank you, Farmer Green," he said. Joey steadied himself from the crutch. Farmer Green held onto his other arm, then hiked through the brush. When they came through a clearing, Farmer Green spoke. "That's some dog you've got there," he said. "What do you mean?" asked Joey. "I mean, you'd still be sitting in the ravine if it wasn't for your white dog. He didn't show me where you were," said Farmer Green. "He came to my field and barked and led me to where you were in the woods." Joey could not believe that Farmer Green was saying. "Couldn't have been my dog, sir," whispered the boy. "My dog passed away almost a month ago." Thank you so much for joining me. If you're still awake, tap the like and subscribe.